They sent us to find noise. That's what Command called it. A signal anomaly near Sector 12, likely atmospheric. Routine job, low risk. We were 4 men and 1 machine, trekking through the spine of the Appalachians under fog so thick it felt like snow that forgot how to fall. My name's Cole, recon specialist, 2nd in Echo 7. Harris led, Murphy ran comms, Ramos watched our 6. The forest around us was dead quiet, no birds, no wind, just the hum of our radios syncing with GPS. Murphy said he caught something on an old analog band, 5.317 MHz, an unregistered frequency that hadn't been used since the 1940s. Probably interference, Harris muttered, but his eyes didn't match his tone. Because we all heard it, a faint voice buried in static, clipped, male, American. Hold position until relieved. At first, nobody cared. Static happens. The mountains eat signals for breakfast. But when Murphy played the capture again, the tone hit different. It wasn't random. It was disciplined, clear diction, clipped military cadence. Company E requesting resupply. Hold position until relieved. Same phrase, perfect repetition. The timestamp on the signal metadata read October 1944. Murphy frowned, tapping his console. "This can't be right," he said. "The signal's too clean for an archive." Harris didn't answer. He just stared at the map, where the triangulation mark blinked in a zone with no data. No roads, no power grid, nothing but contour lines and cold air. "That's 20 clicks east," he said finally. "Let's move." The fog thickened fast. My boots sank an inch into damp soil with every step. Murphy's receiver pulsed faint green through the mist, the only light besides our NVGs. Static hissed, followed by Morse code. Short bursts, then silence. Murphy's voice trembled as he translated, "Rec, resupply, hold line." The last line made Harris stop cold. "Repeat that," he said. Murphy hesitated. "It's looping, sir." The transmission restarted itself. Same tone, same spacing. No human error, no randomness. The forest grew quieter, as if the world itself was listening with us. For a second, I thought I saw shapes through the fog. Lines of men, frozen mid-step, rifles slung, staring in our direction. But when I blinked, they were gone. We stopped on higher ground, where visibility reached maybe 10 meters. Harris ordered a break to reset comms. I watched Murphy cycle through channels. Each one crackled, empty, until the same voice cut through clean as glass. "Company E, position compromised, requesting relief." Murphy froze. "Company E, 141 Infantry," he whispered. Ramos raised an eyebrow. "That's World War II." Harris met my eyes. "You're the history buff, Cole. What happened to them?" I swallowed hard. "Lost battalion, France. Whole unit disappeared behind enemy lines." The silence that followed felt heavier than fog. Murphy replayed the signal again, but this time it wasn't just voice. It carried background noise, low and distant. Marching boots, a man shouting orders, the metallic clatter of rifles, all faint, all perfectly preserved, like ghosts recorded on magnetic tape. "That's impossible," Ramos muttered. "Sound degradation alone would have killed that decades ago." Harris exhaled slowly. "Then we find the source." No one argued. In the fog, arguing felt pointless. Every sound carried too far. Every silence felt alive. Command wanted updates every hour. Harris tried to call it in. "Echo 7 to TOC, we've got live analog interference on 5.317 MHz, requesting confirmation of signal origin." "Static," he tried again, still static. Then, faint under the hiss, came a voice. "Echo 7, hold position, relief inbound." Harris froze. The voice was his own. No delay, no distortion. Perfect copy. He looked at me like he wanted an explanation I didn't have. The forest around us exhaled, a cold wind curling between trees that hadn't moved all night. Could be bounce back, Murphy said, voice cracking. We're getting our own transmission delayed. Harris stared into the mist. Then who's sending it? None of us answered. We resumed movement east. GPS flickered. Compass needles spun lazy circles. The ground felt wrong, soft where it should be solid, hard where mud should be. Fog clung to our gear like static electricity. I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was listening, that we were intruding on something ancient, something patient. We reached a shallow valley by 02:30. The air temperature dropped another 10 degrees. I could see my breath now, clouds of white against the dark. Murphy's receiver started screaming, peaks on the graph spiking into the red. It's right under us, he said. Harris motioned to fan out. We moved slow, rifles raised, eyes cutting through fog that seemed thicker by the second. The forest floor leveled off ahead, opening into a clearing none of us had marked on our maps. In the clearing sat something impossible, an old concrete structure half buried in the earth, rusted metal door still intact, faint markings on the surface. Murphy wiped away grime with his glove. E-141, he whispered. The same code from the broadcast. Harris touched the stenciled numbers. The paint was damp, fresh. No one's supposed to be out here, Ramos said. Harris didn't respond. He just looked at me, then nodded once. We go in. The door groaned open like an animal waking from hibernation. Air inside was stale, metallic, colder than outside. Our NVGs flickered once, twice, then held steady. The passage sloped down into blackness. At the first step, Murphy's receiver jumped alive again. No static now, only that same voice, clear as if standing beside us. Company E, position compromised, requesting relief. The sound wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was coming from inside the bunker. The bunker smelled like iron and damp concrete, the kind of air that's been trapped for decades. Our footsteps echoed longer than they should have, each sound stretching, overlapping itself like a recording loop. Murphy's receiver pulsed steady green, feeding off a signal so strong it distorted his headset. The corridor ahead bent slightly downward, lined with corroded pipes and flaking paint. Harris took point, weapon up. The deeper we went, the more it felt wrong, not haunted, not cursed, just misaligned, like we'd stepped into a place that had forgotten which decade it belonged to. The radio crackled again, faint and hollow. Hold position, until relieved. This time, I didn't need to check the timestamp. The voice wasn't recorded anymore. It was live. We reached a steel door marked Sub-Level 2. Murphy's tablet showed no heat signatures, no life, nothing but a null field of static interference. No data means the instruments don't know what year this is, he whispered. Ramos glanced at him. That's not funny. The door creaked open without resistance. Inside lay a control room frozen in time. Era consoles, rotary dials, analog scopes, every surface coated in dust except one. In the middle of the room sat a field radio, pristine, power light blinking faintly. Harris approached it slow, rifle lowered. Murphy, check it. Murphy crouched, adjusted the gain, and the speaker came alive. Echo 7, status. It was Command's voice, modern, clear. Only none of our headsets were transmitting. We froze. Murphy stared at his equipment. That came through analog, not digital, he whispered. Harris keyed his comm. Command, this is Echo 7. We read you on analog frequency. Confirm our transmission. Silence. Then the reply came again. Exact same words, same tone, same inflection. Echo 7, status. A perfect playback. Murphy's face went pale. That's not a response, that's a loop. The hum in the bunker deepened, like the air itself was resonating. I felt it in my chest more than I heard it, a vibration crawling up my spine. and then the light on the field radio shifted from green to red. The sound that followed wasn't static. It was breathing, heavy, ragged, drawn close to the mic. Ramos took a step back, rifle up. "What the hell is that?" A voice spoke, quiet, rough, like it hadn't been used in years. "Requesting relief. Position compromised." Harris leaned forward. "Identify yourself." Silence then. "Company E, holding line." The same cadence, the same words. The temperature dropped sharply. Frost began forming along the console edges. I could see my own breath again. "They're still transmitting," Murphy whispered. "But this system shouldn't even power on without external supply." Harris looked at him. "Then where's it getting power from?" We never got the answer. The floor trembled, faint but steady, like distant artillery. Then came the sound, marching boots, muffled but rhythmic, echoing through the corridor behind us. "Contact rear!" Ramos barked, swinging his rifle. The hallway was empty, but the sound grew closer, boots striking concrete in perfect formation. Harris shouted, "Flashlights off!" We went dark. The noise passed by, invisible soldiers marching somewhere between walls, between decades. When it faded, the silence that followed didn't belong to this world. I could feel my heartbeat sinking with the hum in the air, like the place was breathing through us. We pressed forward. The tunnel split 3 ways, left, right, and down. The signal source pulsed strongest below. Harris made the call. "We go down?" The descent was slow, ladders slick with condensation. Every rung vibrated faintly under my hands, humming with static charge. When I reached the bottom, my boots landed in standing water. The air was thicker, heavier, carrying a faint, metallic taste. At the end of the chamber stood another door, half open. Beyond it, light flickered like old film, frames skipping between reality and memory. Murphy muttered, "What the hell is this frequency doing to us?" Harris didn't answer. He just said, "Eyes up!" The light inside wasn't artificial. It shimmered like heat haze, revealing flashes of movement within. For a moment I saw soldiers, 5 or 6 of them, American helmets, 1940s uniforms ghosting between positions, repeating the same gestures over and over. One knelt to reload, another yelled a command that made no sound. Then, like film reels overlapping, their outlines flickered and faded. Ramos whispered, "They're stuck in a loop." Murphy shook his head. "Not a loop, a recording burned into space." I didn't want to believe him, but my body knew he was right. The air was heavy with memory. Every breath tasted like history refusing to die. Harris ordered us to set up a relay beacon to tag the site for command. Murphy powered the transmitter, but instead of our signal, the analog frequency came alive again, this time loud, close, panicked. "They're coming through the fog," a voice screamed, raw with fear. "Hold the line, hold!" The broadcast cut off in a shriek of feedback. Every light in the room flickered violently. Sparks burst from the consoles. Then, for a second, the bunker wasn't the bunker anymore. The walls were gone. I was standing in a trench, mud, barbed wire, rain hammering down, and silhouettes firing rifles into smoke. I blinked, and it was gone. Murphy collapsed, gasping. His tablet showed nothing. Blank screen, dead battery. Ramos stared at his rifle like he didn't trust it to be real. Harris steadied himself against the wall, breathing hard. "We're not in Kansas anymore," he muttered. None of us laughed. Above us, the marching started again, closer this time, slower, like the ground itself was remembering. I caught movement in the reflection of my NVG lens, a soldier's face behind me, pale, empty eyes, jaw slack. I turned, nothing there, just fog rolling through the doorway. Harris looked at me. "We're pulling out," he said. But even as he spoke, the only exit began sealing itself, the steel door sliding shut with a hiss of pressure and a sound like metal drowning. The door sealed with a metallic echo that rolled through the bunker like thunder, trapped in stone. We threw our shoulders into it, but it wouldn't budge. Hydraulic systems groaned somewhere deep within, mechanisms older than any of us still alive. Murphy pounded the panel until his gloves were slick with grime. "Manual override's dead," he said. "Power's rerouting from somewhere else." Harris stayed silent, flashlight cutting through drifting dust. The air was thick, too thick, almost solid. My ears rang faintly like pressure was building. Ramos took off his headset. "I can still hear them," he whispered. "The marching, it's under us now." I pressed my boot to the floor. He was right. The vibrations were faint but rhythmic. Boots, dozens of them, marching beneath the concrete. Murphy tried re-establishing contact with command. His tablet glitched. Signal loops flickered across the screen, overlaid by a timestamp, October 8th, 1944. "That's not possible," he muttered. "This isn't stored data, it's streaming." The interface froze again, this time displaying a grainy top-down map of trenches, barbed wire, and unit call signs marked in faded ink. E-141 Infantry, active engagement zone. Harris leaned in. "That's France, Vosges Mountains." Ramos looked around. "We're in the Appalachians, right?" The silence that followed was worse than any confirmation. The air temperature dropped another few degrees, and when Murphy looked back down, his device showed coordinates shifting between two continents every second. We moved deeper into the lower levels, guided by emergency lights flickering along the ceiling. The structure was massive, tunnels splitting off like veins, all leading further underground. Our footsteps echoed long after we stopped walking. At one intersection we found a wall covered in carvings, letters, words, names. Old English mixed with modern call signs, some etched deep into metal, some fresh, some rusted. Murphy. His own name stared back at him, carved perfectly into the wall. He touched it with his glove and froze. "It's warm," he whispered. Harris ordered everyone to keep moving, but nobody wanted to turn their backs on that wall. Further in, the smell changed, less metallic, more organic, rot and earth. The tunnel widened into a chamber lined with wooden crates and rusted helmets stacked against the walls. WP-era rations, ammo boxes, and a faded American flag half buried under dust. Ramos crouched, brushing dirt from a name tag on a uniform sleeve. "Captain Harris." We all looked at our leader. He stared down at it, jaw tight. The name tag wasn't old, it was clean, fresh stitching. He whispered, "That's not mine." Then from somewhere deeper in the dark, a voice called back, his own voice. "Echo 7, this is Captain Harris. Hold position." Every muscle in my body went cold. Murphy spun his receiver toward the sound. The frequency wasn't radio anymore, it was physical. The bunker itself was transmitting, vibrating through walls and air. "Signals everywhere," he said. "It's bleeding through." Harris took a step forward, weapon raised. "Identify!" the voice replied, distorted and delayed. "Holding! The line!" Then it came again, overlapping itself, growing louder until the walls shook with hundreds of voices, all chanting the same phrase in different tones, different centuries. "Hold the line! Hold the line!" My ears screamed. My vision blurred. I saw flashes, soldiers in trenches, smoke, barbed wire, and faces that looked both dead and alive at once. The sound hit bone. We took cover behind overturned crates. Sparks burst from the overhead lights. One by one, they blew out, plunging the chamber into darkness. Only the faint glow from Murphy's screen lit us. The map had changed again. It now displayed our own call signs from 1944. "We're part of it," Murphy said, voice breaking. "We're the signal now." Harris shouted, "Negative! We get topside now!" but the ground shifted like something massive was moving beneath. A section of the floor cracked open, revealing a staircase descending into total black. From below, faint red light pulsed in rhythm with the marching boots. Harris looked at us, eyes hollow. "We finish this," he said, and before any of us could stop him, he started down. The staircase went on forever, a spiral of rusted metal that groaned under our boots. The red light below pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with every step. The air thickened, metallic and sour. My ears popped as if we were descending miles underground. At the bottom, we found mud, real mud, wet, cold, impossible. Harris aimed his light forward, revealing wooden walls reinforced with sandbags. The concrete bunker was gone. In its place stood a trench. We were outside, but the ceiling above was still steel. Rain fell from nowhere, cold and endless. "This isn't possible," Murphy whispered. But it was, because somewhere in the distance, artillery thundered. The ground shook with a deep rumble. Distant machine gun bursts rolled through the air, muted but real. Every instinct screamed that we were standing in the middle of a battle that had already happened and refused to end. The mud sucked at our boots, pulling like it wanted to keep us. Murphy swept his scanner. "We're picking up EM distortion, lots of it. These coordinates don't exist anymore." Ramos stared into the fog ahead. "I see people." Shapes moved between the mist. Soldiers in heavy wool coats, rifles raised, faces blank, pale eyes staring straight through us. They marched past, silent, their feet leaving no prints. The smell of cordite and blood filled the air. Harris raised his rifle. "Weapons up, stay tight." The fog pulsed once, then cleared, revealing the trench stretching into infinity. The walls twisted like a maze, every turn identical, every step leading nowhere new. "We're looping," I said. "No," Murphy answered. "We're overlapping." He showed his screen. The map flickered between decades. One moment a WAPU 2 trench grid, the next our modern satellite overlay. "We're standing on both," he whispered. The sound of artillery flared again, this time closer. I looked up. The steel ceiling above us had vanished. In its place hung a grey sky, streaked with flashes of lightning and the unmistakable whistle of incoming shells. The explosion came a heartbeat later, shaking the ground so hard it threw us into the walls. Debris rained down, mud and shattered boards pelting our helmets. My ears rang like shattered glass. When I looked up, the fog had changed colour. Amber, thick with dust and smoke. Figures ran past us, shouting orders in 1940s American accents. One grabbed my arm, screaming, "Get to the line!" His face was grey, his eyes empty. He didn't see me at all. He passed straight through. Murphy stumbled, hands over his ears. "We're in the recording!" he shouted. "The battle's still happening!" But the bullets flying overhead weren't illusions. They cut into the walls, sending splinters and sparks across our boots. Harris yelled over the noise, "We move or we die!" We pushed through the trench, the world warping around us. Time had no sequence here. Every few meters, uniforms changed, from digital camo to wool khaki, from helmets to caps. One moment the trench was modern concrete, the next it was mud and wood. The fog glowed red with muzzle flashes that didn't belong to any era. A voice on the radio screamed our call sign, overlapping itself, looping, "Echo 7, hold the line!" Then the transmission broke, replaced by hundreds of whispers repeating the same phrase. I realized they weren't on comms, they were right behind us. We reached a dead end. The wall ahead was solid steel, with fresh paint, E141, the same as before. Harris stared at it, breathing hard. "It's the same point," he said. "We never left." Murphy looked at his wristwatch, frozen at 02:17. "The same time since the night we found the town. We're not stuck in a place," he said. "We're stuck in a moment." Then the ground trembled again, deeper this time. The steel wall began to bend inward, warping like something was pressing from the other side. A handprint appeared, large, skeletal, glowing faint white through metal. It pressed harder, and a voice came through the wall. Calm, human, and familiar. My voice. Hold position until relieved. The handprint on the wall pulsed once, then faded, leaving behind the faint outline of light like heat on steel. We stood frozen. No one spoke. The silence that followed felt heavier than any gunfire. Harris finally broke it. "We move," he said, voice raw. "Backtrack. Find another exit." But the trench didn't backtrack. When we turned, the path behind us was gone, just fog and echo. The smell of earth deepened, wet and iron sweet, like the ground itself had started bleeding. My radio clicked on by itself. A voice crackled through static. "Echo 7, this is command. Transmit your position." The voice was familiar, but too clean, too clear. Command hadn't sounded like that in days. Murphy looked at me. "That's not them," he whispered. "That's a playback." We pressed forward anyway, following the faint glow of what looked like daylight. The deeper we went, the more the trench twisted. The fog thinned just enough to show movement ahead. Figures huddled around a radio set half buried in mud. We team uniforms, American, helmets dented, faces hollow, eyes dark. They were whispering in perfect sync with the transmission still playing in my ear. "Echo 7, transmit your position." Harris raised his hand to signal stop, but one of the figures turned its head. It was like watching glass flex. The man's features shifted through decades in seconds, young, old, scarred, clean-shaven. Then his voice came out through our headsets. "We've been waiting for you." I could taste blood in the air now, metallic and dry. Murphy's scanner flared white, overloading. "The source! It's them," he said. "They're the signal." The soldiers around the radio didn't move, didn't blink. They were frozen mid-transmission like mannequins wired into the frequency. Harris took a slow step forward. "Identify yourselves." Static answered first. Then a dozen voices spoke through our comms in unison, echoing the same phrase. "Hold the line." One of the figures lifted its head, and I saw what was left of its face, half flesh, half static distortion, as if reality itself couldn't decide what year he belonged to. Then the radio clicked, and a new voice came through, my own, hollow, recorded. "Echo 7, we're compromised. Do not..." The line cut out. We pulled back fast. The trench walls began to close in, folding like lungs exhaling mud and smoke. Harris yelled orders I couldn't hear over the roar. The ground trembled again, each vibration syncing with the beat of that red light from somewhere below. "The signal's collapsing," Murphy shouted. "It's pulling us in." His tablet flickered with coordinates looping endlessly between 1944 and 2025. "We have to cut the feed." He tried to smash the screen, but it didn't crack. It melted, light seeping through his gloves. He screamed as the glow crawled up his arm, dissolving into static. Harris grabbed him, dragging him through the mud, but Murphy's body began to blur, fading into interference, like a photo losing exposure. His last words came through the radio instead of his mouth. "If you hear this, don't follow the light." Then he was gone. Only 3 of us left, Harris, Ramos, and me. The trench tilted upward now, forming a slope. At the top, I could see daylight breaking through fog, faint but real. We climbed, slipping in mud that clung like hands. The explosions stopped. The fog turned silver, quiet. My radio hissed again. A child's voice this time, soft, humming that same old tune we'd heard back in the valley. It echoed through the trench like a lullaby. Ramos stopped climbing. "That song, he said. "It's coming from up there." Before we could stop him, he dropped his rifle and ran toward the light. The fog swallowed him in one step. His voice vanished, but the humming continued. I didn't move. Neither did Harris. We just stared at where he'd been until the song ended with a crack of static. When the silence returned, Harris turned to me. "We finish this," he said, his eyes glassy. "You make sure someone knows." He handed me his field recorder, the one he'd been using to document our mission since day one. The casing was cracked, the battery blinking red. "Get topside," he said. Then he stepped back toward the trench, into the fog. "Sir!" I shouted, but he didn't turn around. His radio flared once, and I heard his voice one last time through the headset. Echo 7, holding the line. Then it was gone. The fog sealed shut behind him, leaving me alone with the dead. I don't remember climbing out. One minute, I was knee-deep in mud. The next, I was staring at daylight. The trench was gone, replaced by forest. Appalachian pines swayed under grey morning light. My radio was silent. My watch still read 02:17. I stumbled forward until I found the ridge, the same ridge we'd descended what felt like weeks ago. Down in the valley there was nothing. No town, no fog, no light, just wilderness. I activated the recorder, my hands shaking. "Echo 7, I said. "Mission complete. No survivors." The device crackled, then faintly, my own voice played back through it. Words I hadn't said yet. "If you hear this, you're already inside. They found me the next day. Or maybe it was the next year." I never got a straight answer. The debrief said I'd been missing for 6 days. No sign of the others, no trace of any structure or radio signature at Grid 97. Command filed it as a psychological incident, environmental disorientation. They shut the file under classified recovery protocol, but they kept the recorder. I asked for it back once. They said it didn't exist. I knew better. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I still hear the playback through the walls, our voices looping, transmitting from somewhere underground, still holding the line. And sometimes, just before dawn, when the fog settles thick outside my window, I see the red light again pulsing through it.
And I remember what Murphy said, "Don't follow the light."
Officially, there is no Grid 97. Every satellite sweep of that sector returns static, as if the terrain itself rejects observation. The coordinates recorded by Echo 7's transponder vanish the moment they're entered into the system, overwritten by blank telemetry. Even the forest canopy in that region refuses to match surrounding maps, shadows at wrong angles, trees bending where no wind blows. Analysts call it a data void. Locals call it something older, the place where soldiers go quiet. No permanent base ever built there lasted longer than a week. Power fails, GPS drifts, and every camera footage ends the same way. Blinding light, then black. The official debrief on Sergeant Cole listed symptoms consistent with temporal trauma, a phrase nobody outside certain black files ever used again. His report was sealed under Protocol Lazarus, a classification normally reserved for nuclear field events. Most of his testimony was redacted, but fragments survived in the audio. You can hear him breathing, whispering coordinates, then silence. At the 6-minute mark, a faint signal returns, his voice repeating the phrase, holding the line, layered beneath hundreds of others. Each one out of sync, like echoes traveling through decades. Acoustic analysts later confirmed the background ambience matched battlefield recordings from 1944. By 2026, the Department of Defense quietly deleted the entire Echo 7 file from its archive. Every backup, every digital trace, gone. But like any good ghost, pieces remained. A drone feed recovered by an independent researcher shows a red pulse faintly visible through Appalachian fog. Coordinates time-stamped at 02:17, same minute, same grid. The footage ends abruptly when the drone loses altitude, its sensors burned out by an unidentified energy surge. The final frame captures a trench line carved into the earth where no trench should exist. The red light has been reported 5 more times since then, always at 02:17, always during heavy fog. Civilian hikers describe hearing distant marching and the hum of radios long dead. Some claim to see soldiers in the mist, moving in perfect formation, their eyes reflecting static. No one who's gone down the valley during those hours has come back with footage that lasts more than 7 seconds. Every file corrupts the same way, frames overlapping, voices whispering the same message that started it all. Echo 7, transmit your position. Last year, a new expedition team was approved under a civilian research program called Operation Silverpine. They were tasked to remap the lost grid and verify any surviving anomaly signatures. The mission launched at dawn. By nightfall, their GPS beacons all blinked off, one by one, each marking their last known position within the same circular perimeter. The recovered transmission, fragmented and barely audible, carried only 4 words before the feed died. The line is holding. Every war leaves ghosts. Some wear uniforms, others frequencies. Maybe that's what Grid 97 really is, not a place, but a frequency that never stopped transmitting. Somewhere deep under the Appalachian soil, the radios still hum, the voices still call, and the red light still pulses like a heartbeat. If you ever find yourself driving those mountain roads at night and see a glow where no town should be, don't stop, don't listen, because if you do, they'll hear you. And once they hear you, you're already inside.